radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gauges and granny, to this Friday morning edition of The Big Puzzle. I'm Barry Prince, coming to you live from my kitchen in northern British Columbia through the facilities of UCY Radio and TV. Thank you very much, UCY, for giving me this opportunity to share our thoughts on Friday morning. Originally today I was going to have a couple ladies joining me to talk about the effects of alkalinity on cancer, but because of my uncertainty right now with my mushrooms and what I'm doing out in the bush, I mentioned earlier this week that I might not be around on Friday. But I decided to come in last night, and both of them aren't available. I came in last night to get supplies, and I'll be going right out to the bush. We're just having an incredible time out there, guys, and if I start talking about that, it'll take up the whole hour, so I'm not going to do that right now. But to say that it absolutely charges your batteries up when you connect with the earth and you're walking in the forest, the solitude and the quiet and the wild animals that I see and the connection I feel is just incredible. And everybody's got to do that once in a while, because I'll tell you, your stress levels disappear. Everything that bothers you in life will just seem to be irrelevant to what you're experiencing at that particular time. So I urge you all to get out and walk the woods, guys. But all that being said, on short notice, there's two ladies that I've met through the internet here in the last 2 or 3 years. Actually, I think it's 4 years now with Patty and Barbara. A couple years I've known are incredible individuals, people I just love having conversations with. And I've been asked them to come in and have a chat with me this morning. And I was off the internet for, Monday morning I was in the bush at 9 o'clock, and I got out last night. So everything that's gone on this week, I'm really out of the loop. I've been trying to catch up, but there's been a heck of a lot of things going on this week. So I invited these ladies in to maybe catch me up a little bit. Good morning, Barbara, and good morning, Patty. Thanks for joining me. Always a pleasure, guys.
Hi, Barry. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's awesome to be on your show.
Well, who wants to go first? I know you're both itching at the bit here. Who wants to go first? I want to hear about. Well, I was catching up on Mexico. That was an incredible earthquake down there. They're still getting aftershocks. We all know that we're in an incredibly high time for earthquake activity right now. We see them going off all over the world right now. But all that being said, Puerto Rico just absolutely got devastated. The whole Caribbean this year has just been devastated by one hurricane after another, and now we got another one coming in apparently. So bring me up to date on all this, guys, please.
Well, go ahead, Patty.
Well, the Mexico earthquake was really bad. There was also a very large one off the coast of Japan, also one in Vanuatu that were pretty devastating had they have been closer to the land. The one in Japan was pretty shallow. I'm not sure about the one in Mexico, how deep it was, but we've seen the result of it. However, right now they're watching, there have been buoy alerts off of the Cascadia Fault, where the subduction zone there, to where it has dropped, the water level dropped like 4 feet. So they're expecting that pressure will be building there, and that's off the west coast, around the Oregon area, up by Vancouver, all along that area. So they're on alert now.
I didn't hear about that
Also,
one, Patty.
yeah, also we've got the volcano in Mexico also that came to life after the earthquake. And so there's a lot of movement going on. Also, we have Yellowstone, where they have been, they had a 4.1 earthquake.
Didn't get that.
But
4 point what?
Yet it caused
Pat,
the
you're
geysers.
breaking up.
Yeah, 4 point. Yeah, it wasn't big. Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, the one in the Mexico one was 7.1, but 11 days prior to that was a magnitude 8.1 off the coast of southern Mexico.
Right.
And then it seems like they're stacking up here. A lot of things are stacking up between the hurricanes, the earthquakes, volcanoes, and all kinds of other stuff here that is really ramping up. One after the other, it seems. People can't get a rest, especially the people in the islands, were struck more than once with the hurricanes.
Yeah,
So
no, you've got Maria coming in now. I just had a quick look at that this morning, and apparently it's being held down by Irma. There's a real big high pressure system in the middle of the Atlantic, but that has the potential to make landfall too. And when that one hit Puerto Rico, what was it, 170 mile an hour winds is what they experienced, I believe.
yeah,
I'm
175.
trying to get I just got on this morning, so I'm trying to catch up with all this information. But nothing in the world is meant to stand up to 170 mile an hour winds. That's a tornado, 60 miles wide. So my heart goes out to those guys. Like you said, Patty, the governor's in tears. They're saying 6 months before they're going to have power back on the island. Incredible, really sad thing to see happen to somebody.
Well, in Mexico, the people they're pulling out people from the collapsed buildings, and one of the buildings that collapsed was a school. So there were many children that didn't make it. And I think there are still some that they're hearing, and they're trying to get water to them, and so on and so forth. And I was looking at this. Those people work with their hands. There's no machines coming in there, like no, cranes that could lift anything up. I don't know. They're all these men and everybody else, just your common people in the streets and neighborhoods are just trying to pull away these huge beams and cinder blocks and everything with their hands, and it's just unbelievable, that devastation. And then hearing these children's voices underneath the buildings, so it's kind of like waiting there with bated breath to see what's going to happen,
Oh.
So, well, anyway, so we're looking at all these things. Are you there, Patty?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because we've been talking about, I don't know. I made a remark about it seems like the prophecies are lining right up in our time now, one after the other after the other. And, somebody made a remark, was quoted, someone in Mexico, who said, it seems as though God is very angry with us. And I was going, yeah, hello, but of course it's like, and then there are preachers and whomever is saying this is God's wrath, angry at the people. And, I don't know. I don't really want to go there fully, but I do think that it is sort of wake up calls that we have to look at, as things happen like this. And they are not, it doesn't seem random or happenstance. It seems, especially this particular series of events. And then there is the other part where people are talking about that these are manipulated storms, and they're showing all types of videos and documentaries on the manner of this manipulation and the movement of the hurricane, the first one that came in, how it just swept all over the islands, and at the tip of Florida took a complete stop and right turn right into Florida, kind of, and of course, people noted that that was extremely unusual for a hurricane of that velocity and movement to suddenly stop and then veer over the land.
I believe there's manipulation going on there for sure, Barb, because when Harvey happened, I looked at the tracks of Harvey.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I've never, I studied a whole pile of hurricanes over the last 15 years prior to Harvey, and I can't find any track that looks similar to what Harvey did. That thing came in, did rights, did lefts, did pirouettes, and what makes a hurricane do that? There has to be some form of manipulation.
Well, the real thing about that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, the real thing about that, Barry, is I lived my young life in Louisiana. Went through Hurricane Betsy, Hurricane Camille, and all the others. Never did I ever see the way in Houston. I mean, never have I seen a hurricane stop and stay in one spot on land, which is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself was very suspect to me. That what did it do? Put like 15 inches per hour or something like that.
Yep. Dropped all that. Yep.
In one area. How crazy is that? I've never known a hurricane would stop.
It's just not here in America. This is happening. If you look all around the world right now, we're seeing flooding events that people have never seen before. The amount of 100-year floods that the Earth has experienced in the last 3 years alone, if you study those stats, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And now we're getting 1,000-year floods happening. It's just incredible what we see going on. But you're correct, Barbara. Without getting deep into a biblical or a religious discussion, I've made it quite clear before my religious beliefs that I'm a Christian and I follow biblical prophecy. And whether this is being manipulated by design to enhance prophecies, whether it's being done as a benign evil, those questions I can't answer. But the fact is that we're seeing right now an allegory of events that have been taught to me in the Bible about everything that's going on in our world, not just the geologicals, not the earthquakes or the storms or the floods we're seeing, but what we're seeing going on inside of governments. Seems like every nation in the world is ready to go to war with every nation in the world. We're seeing a rise of a cashless society. That's going to come to our world very quickly, and it's going to be pushed on us very hard here in the very near future. We see the possibility of a one world government taking place. All these things are talked about, and all these things are coming together right now at an incredible rate. So to me, I'm not the kind of person that's going to say, hey, you got to do this to be right in your world. But what I do say to people is you have to have some kind of spiritual connection right now, because if you don't, things that are going on in this world will absolutely drive you insane. Go ahead, folks. Go ahead, Barb.
Yeah, well, I kind of feel like this is the time where we have to speak our truth. And I often say to Patty, in fact, I sound like a preacher these days, something I never expected to be sounding like a preacher. I am a spiritual teacher and so on and so forth, but I sound sometimes like I'm up on a podium telling people to get right with their creator. And this is the time, a spiritual battle. We're in a spiritual battle, the dark and the light. And that we need a foundation strong. We need that trust and faith really strong. So I'm not afraid to say it, because I feel in my heart that this is the key piece here. We talk about how can we move through these times, these changes, and these challenges, these devastations that we see. And I feel that it's not going to stop. Whether it's manipulated by humans, geoengineering, whether it's weather control, whoever is behind us, whether it's Lucifer, whether it's Creator, it doesn't matter to me. It's ever present. And I think, for me personally, I feel that how are we going to get through this? If you don't have trust and faith, if you don't have that strong foundation, you're going to fall apart. You're not going to have anything to hold on to, or to turn to. I just feel this is the time we have to speak this truth, and so maybe I'm going to sound like a preacher, I just feel that that's what's coming out of me, and I feel very strongly about this piece that we talk about. We talk about love, we talk about compassion, but you have to think about what is that frequency of love and compassion, because this is what I feel that is the saving grace, is the frequency, the energy around us when we hold that. That is what is powerful. And to some people, it sounds like, oh, a bunch of hokey, yeah, love, love, love. But no, this is not what I'm talking about. I'm really talking about that love that I feel. I said to Patty yesterday on Skype Talk, and I feel that Creator gave us that tool, love as a tool. And it's more than what we think it is, and that's what I think is something that to really understand in these times. That's just my sense.
Patty?
Well, the one thing that you don't hear anyone talking about, and I'm one of these people that I always look at what's being said, and then I want to know what's not being said. We have solar issues right now with the sun. We're going into a solar minimum, and this in itself is causing a lot of geological changes. We're getting a lot more radiation than we've ever received in the past, except for during the Maunder minimums and the other minimums that we've had. There's been a lot of talk about climate change. Before it was climate change, though, it was global warming. Well, that didn't stick, because actually the fluctuations in climate are extreme to both degrees. So I started wondering, why are we having these extremes to both degrees? Well, if you look at the sun and the activity of the sun, sunspots are what gives us our magnetosphere's strength. We're tethered to the sun through this magnetic connection. When the sun goes into a minimum, our magnetosphere, it weakens. So, and the sun's magnetosphere also weakens. And when it does this, any radiation that's coming through the solar system and other solar systems that pass through us, through the Milky Way, the sun usually absorbs a lot of those radiations, but it's not able to do it as well now. So we're being hit by different radiations that are really causing havoc on the Earth. It's why we're seeing a lot of these temperature variations. It's why you're getting snow in Montana right now, and the heat wave in other parts of the country. But I do believe also that these are being exasperated. I think that the control that is out there has been manipulating and has been mitigating or making worse the things that are happening, these climate changes. I do believe that HAARP has something to play with it. I do believe that the chemtrailing, anyone who thinks that chemtrailing is just nothing to worry about, really hasn't done any research whatsoever. And I remember when we first started talking about chemtrails, when they said, oh, that's a conspiracy. And then they came out and admitted, and the patents are being put out on the internet now, so that you can see they've been working on these patents for decades.
Mm-hmm.
This is the type of chemicals that they're putting in here. So we know that we have several factors that are playing on this climate change. And, I get a lot of flack from people that say, oh, you're a climate denier. Well, of course I'm not a climate denier. Climates change. They always have. And if you look at the history, you will see that these Maunder minimums, they do cause havoc. They do cause a cooling of the Earth. And there's a lot of good information out there, but nobody, you hear everybody talking about climate change, and I'm talking about in governments, UN, all of these people, but you don't hear them talking about the sun and its effect on our climate during these times. So it lets me know that they are hiding the truth from us, and that it's up to us to look into this. Now, as far as the geological changes, this is also part of what happens during a Maunder minimum. And so we know that these things will happen. They're going to continue to happen, and they will get more frequent. They will get more extreme. This
You're
is
right.
just, yeah, it's just what we're going through.
Yeah, I was reading one report there that approximately, I think it was 33,000 years ago, the whole planet was covered in ice. When we go into, they say by the year 2050, we will see the effects of the solar minimum, and we're going to see global temperatures drop as much as 8 to 10 degrees. That's one report I read. So I'm just reiterating on what you're saying there, Patty. During that period that the Earth was covered in ice, just prior to that period, there was what they call an earthquake swarm. The Earth experienced a pile of earthquakes in a very, very short period of time. And it's funny, we're almost seeing the identical thing happen right now as the solar minimum starts to take effect. They say this year and next year we'll really start to see the effects of the solar minimum. So I urge people to look into that. Barbara?
Yeah, well, I think that's part of it, and I think there's many parts happening here. It's a big puzzle as we are understanding more and more, or understanding more and more. There are many tentacles to this circumstance that we're experiencing. Some of it is, you could say, natural, but then there's also manipulation, and then there's also the participation of, everyone. It seems that we are so seriously divided, not only in this country, but throughout the whole world. And there's a lot of anger and hatred and various other things going on. And then you have the assault upon the earth, destroying the rainforests and pollution and GMOs and chemtrailing. And you have all these things that are going to have an effect. There's a repercussion. Everything that you do has a repercussion. We can't get away from that. I feel that in this time of humanity's history, that I don't think prior to this there's ever been such an assault upon the earth, with all of the technology and the chemicals and pesticides and so on. And the manipulations and HARP and chemtrailing. I don't think there's ever been in our lifetime, in our history, or the knowledge of humanity's history, that we've had this type of technology. And it's easier now to cut down a forest because they have these machines now that they don't need the men out there with chainsaws. I was watching this video a while back that was it was just stunning to see these giant machines, how they just take down, these forests in the matter of, less time than it ever takes. And they're just go forward with this, and so we have all that. So it's not just one thing that we're looking at. It's not just the natural changes, which have always been. It's a lot of things involved here. And I also think that I guess you could say, because I believe that we are powerful in the way we are co-creators and the choices that we make and our own energy. So if you have people throughout the world that are shifting their perspectives upon others and hatred and violence and so on, there's a repercussion to that. It's not just an isolated incident. To me, it affects the whole, vibrationally. So we are at odds with each other. We're seriously divided, and this is the time that I think that, that's part of a manipulation, and what kind of an effect does that have? There have been studies where people have particularly focused on healing and light and love and peace over periods of time. There was one study where they did this for 4 years, groups of people throughout the world in certain large cities, for instance. I think the United States and Great Britain, and then I think somewhere in Japan, I don't remember, but about 4 or 5 large places, large cities, and they would come together at a prescribed time, these groups in various places together, and they would sit and they would meditate and focus on peace and love and, healing and so on. And they did studies of what was happening in these large cities, and they noticed that police calls and murders and violence dropped. Emergencies dropped, and so on and so forth. So they noticed there was something over this period of 4 years that was being affected, they felt, by what they were focusing on. And I kind of believe in that. I do. I think that we have an ability and a power that we really don't understand. So if we're randomly, marching or punching people or hating people or spewing out this negative stuff, that's going to have a repercussion rather than more and more people coming together in unity and, using prayer or commitment of, doing good works or focusing on something positive, So I think there's a lot at play here. I know that there are natural changes that do occur. I do feel that the technology and the assault upon the earth, it may be more so than it's ever been, which is creating imbalance as well. And then we have our own involvement as humans, how we are being subjected to behaviors that are controlled, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If we sit and think about it for a second, we're supposed to be intelligent beings. We're supposed to be at the top of the so-called intelligence level in our world today, as far as living organisms on the planet. And yet here we are with this technology, all this knowledge we have, destroying the one thing that is the most important thing, and that's our planet. I mean, I sit back and I go, we have all this knowledge, all these things that we could do to change everything that we're doing wrong, and yet humanity refuses to embrace it. Why is that? I believe a lot of people, Barbara, aren't going to come to the point where they really want to do something about what we see going on till it directly affects them. That's a sad thing to say, but that's the way I see society, because the knowledge and the information's out there. The fact that if you go on the internet and do a meeting of studies on soil samples, on biosphere, on plant production in the food belts of the United States of America, how the food production is dropping at drastic rates. You tell me that is not being affected by chemtrails? I've looked at the patents that Patty talks about. I mean, they're spraying beryllium, strontium, mercury, aluminum into our atmosphere. These are all metals. I mean, anybody with any common sense is going to know that's going to end up in our soil. What kind of long-term effects is that having on our biosphere? Well, now we're starting to see it. But the thing is that we as a people really have to put aside our differences. And it's something we talk about a lot, but our whole focus really as a world, as a society, should be protecting the one thing that's going to give our children the same kind of life that we've enjoyed. And right now, boy, I'll tell you, I just don't see that. I see a planet coming for my children that is going to be devastated if we keep going the way we are. But we have the answers, guys. We really do have the answers, but we really have to embrace it. Patty?
Well, here's the thing that I see is that we have changes not only in our climate, we have them on the political front, we have globalization, we have the science industry, because that's what it is now. It's a money-making machine for the government. These people, they do their studies and they create these new technologies at the government's request. The money is there, and that's what you do. We have Monsanto that is head now of the FDA. We have them writing their own laws. We have corporations that have taken over government, and they used to have to lobby the government. Now we have the corporate sector is leading the government. We have a deep state shadow government. We look at what's being implemented. Look at the CRISPR technology that is being put out there. Look at the moves towards this transhumanism. Look at everything that's being put out there. The seed vaults. Look at the DNA vaults that have been created. All of this should be red flags to us that the human aspect of the earth is they're moving us to an era. They see an era of machine that will be able to. They want the consciousness of a human so that they can give it orders and it can think for itself, but they don't want it thinking too deeply. They want it to make critical decisions, but they don't want it to step out of the block. Humans are really bad about that because we'll stand up and we'll say, "Hey, I ain't doing this anymore." So now we have all of these new technologies that are gearing us to want to become transhumans. We are no longer able to breathe the air. We're no longer able to eat the food. We're no longer able to drink the water because it's all toxic now. So what's going to save us? Well, we have now the scientists that are taking the brain and putting it in a artificial body, so that we won't have to worry anymore about being sick. We won't have to worry anymore about the toxic side of life, But they refuse to stop creating this toxic environment. They continue to promote toxins in the environment. So that should be our red flag that it's not about this moving to a globalized, unified world system. It is simply taking the human out of the consciousness of humanity, out of the equation. They don't need us anymore. They don't. We're too much now. We're too many to manage. And all of these things that we're seeing, all of this strife, this racism, all of this is small pockets. If you go out into your area, wherever you're at, and if you find the type of racism that you're seeing, the type of anger, the type of anarchy that you're seeing out on the news, you can't find it. I can't find it here. People I talk to, they can't find it where they're living. All of this is just an act to a play that is being played out. The agenda is being played out, and the people are no more the wiser because they only have one form of information, and that information is compartmentalized.
Exactly.
In other words, you see the hate, the anger, and the fear, and that's what you have to react on, positive in that. So you must move from. They must move the herd from one pasture to the next. How do you do that? You give them a reason to want to go that way. We know this. This is the way they've always done things. And Barb was talking about how prophecy is being fulfilled. Well, who's fulfilling these prophecies? Look at that. The governments. There's no good government out there. I'm sorry. I believe in anarchy, but I believe in the anarchy that says that I don't need a leader to do the right thing, that I am an individual with rights that are inherent in my being, and that I have the right to make choices in my life. As long as I don't harm another, then leave me alone. We can't have this in a global community. We can't have this. The UN can't allow this. Property rights are being taken away. We have this climate change that says we have to do something. You people are bad. We're going to tax you for it because you're breathing and your cows are farting, and so we have to pay for this. But yet, when people strike out on their own and say, "Hey, I've got a solution. I'm going totally green. I've got my wind energy. I've got my solar energy. I'm off the grid." What do? They come and they force you back onto the grid and say, "No, you can't be off the grid. You can't collect your rainwater. You can't grow your own food." So this lets us know that, hey, something's wrong here. If they're telling me that what I'm doing is wrong and I change and do the right thing, and they tell me I can't do the right thing because all they want is the money. And if you give me the money will fix everything, they say. Not stepping away from the grid and doing the right thing. No, if we pay the climate money, then the climate will be happy. This is what they're trying to tell us. And we're buying it. People are buying this. Saying, I've had enough of this, this insanity. People are just going with the flow because they make it to a point where you have no choice. You have no choice. You have to do it their way. If you don't, then you're excommunicated. You're sent out of society. You know.
Yeah, well, a perfect example of that, Patty, is the carbon tax that they just rammed down our throat in Canada. But they're going to have a hard time with that in the next couple of years when the temperatures really do start to drop, because I believe that's going to happen.
Well, they'll just have.
What are they going to do then? It's not carbon, guys. Actually, we're going to change our story, and they'll come up with something else. But this carbon tax, guys, the attack on our economy, what this is going to do to the middle class in Canada is just mind-boggling, and it's been shoved down our throat by our government. Provinces refuse to enforce it, and the government's now taking them to court. That's where we're at in Canada. Go ahead.
Well, it's just that if the money that they get from you isn't enough to appease climate, then they'll just have to get more money to appease climate. You see?
Well, yeah, that's where they can fly around in their jets and give money away to George Soros. I mean, our government just gave $5 billion to George Soros Oprah Borden Foundation. I'm going, what? Go ahead, Barb. I know you want to say something. Hello, Barbara. Did I lose Barbara? Did I lose you guys?
Well, I'm here. I was muted. I'm kind of reading something here that has nothing to do with what you're talking about, George Soros or tax and blah blah blah.
I just threw that in there. Okay, it's not.
I'm still in the realm of natural disasters, and what causes them, and how people blame. Why would a benevolent God allow these things to happen? And then some say, well, Satan is in control of various things that happen that are bad. And, I just looking at this because I don't want to lose track of what I feel is really significant. And we can talk about all the things and who's to blame and so on and so forth. And I think that a lot of that is distraction from the real piece that I feel is the greater picture or the bigger picture, like where are we going and how can we move into the future in a better way and a more compassionate, loving way, and rather than keep the rhetoric going about, this one did that and that government is doing this and I just feel that's a distraction, and I think people easily get distracted, Barry. Then we get off on, the government's doing this and raising the taxes, or the rich are this and so on. To me, I just think it's all a distraction. What is the real issue? What is the real important thing? We are in a mess, and you could go down a whole list of who's responsible for that. But if we really know and believe and see clearly that we are in a mess, what's the solutions? How can we really shift this magnitude of issues that we are being inundated with, And the piece is, to me, it's the questioning, some people say, like, how could God allow this to happen? And or Satan is at work, and and where does this piece come in as far as where are we going? What steps do we need to take to manifest something entirely different than what we are being inundated with, and not only that we are focused on and distracted by? That's where I am. Mm-hmm. I've come to that place, and quite a few, recent years ago, I've just said, I've said everything I feel like I can say. I've talked about this issue, that harbinger of doom. Who's responsible for this and who's doing what? And yeah, the patents for chemtrail spraying are ever present. You can look up them, but also the geoengineering and weather manipulation patents are out on the web too.
Mm-hmm.
You can find those. My question always is, and I questioned this a while back, these people are downright crazy, mad, or just evil, because we often say, how can these people do this? How could they, like GMO or certain Monsanto knew about this particular chemical that creates brain damage in children, and they still put it out. They still allow this to go out. These are documented now.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask, how could these people do that? These are, your guys and women in suits out there around a table in that business making decisions and determinations for the money that they're going to get. Oh, this particular chemical, our scientists say, is damaging, but let's cover that up because, hey, this is a good thing. We could make a lot of money on this. Well, that's downright evil. So you question, how could these people make a determination like that, knowingly that this is going to harm infants and children and people?
Mm-hmm.
To me, my answer comes that it is that they are run and ruled and have sold their soul to the most powerful evil that we can imagine. And you could call it Satan, you could call it Lucifer. It doesn't matter because it is evil. And because I carry a sacred pipe, a chanumpa, it's called in the Lakota tradition, my responsibility when I was told to pick that up is to pray for everyone. It's considered a pipe, a prayer, powerful prayer to Creator for everyone. I'm not allowed, through my responsibility, to leave out certain people because I may not like what they're doing. And I am an advocate for prayer, the power of prayer. I believe in it. I've seen amazing things happen through that sacred pipe and through ceremony and through prayer. And never in my experience or in my, the way that I've been trained and guided is to pray for everyone. This is the prayer for people, all people. So I can't separate those people who are doing bad things and say, well, they don't deserve my prayers and they should all go to hell. They're going to burn in hell. I don't know that they're going to burn in hell. How do I know that? Who am I to say those people over there are evil and they're going to go to hell? I cannot say that. To me, that's a foolish statement and an arrogant remark. Everything is up to the Creator. And I just feel that, in a way, I think we should get on the good side of light and compassion and love, regardless of what other people are doing. And I pray for them because I want that madness to stop. I would prefer that they are changed, that their mind opens up, their heart opens up, that their spirit is awakened, and to stop this horrible, assault upon humanity and the earth. I would prefer that. So how's that going to happen? I prefer to pray for them rather than say, I hate those people or I hope they burn in hell. I would never, ever say that. So I just wanted to share this about where we are today and what can we do? We've talked over and over and over again for years on these radio shows about what the stuff is that we're dealing with. The real serious, the real horrendous stuff and who's behind it, human-wise. And we could go on and on like that. I made a determination that I'm done talking about it. I'm done because if people don't know by now, how long are we going to keep talking about this is the problem, and so on. So I just feel we are at such a crucial time in our journey here as humans on this earth. And we all know the seriousness of it. And if by now people out there listening don't know the seriousness of what is happening, I don't know when they will. I don't know what it's going to take for them to listen and to really say, wow, this is real. This is not a conspiracy. This is not a bunch of woo-woo crazy people talking on the radio. This is real. And what are we going to do about it now? Are you going to step into the masses of people out there screaming and spitting on each other and carrying signs and saying, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with that? To me, that's a waste of energy, and it's a deliberate distraction. So people don't really go to their hearts and really connect with what we are being asked to do in this lifetime now. That's what I feel. I don't think that people out in the streets screaming and yelling are going to make a difference. I don't, because the ones who are being manipulated by evil could give a crap. They don't care. I think they even might think it's humorous. Oh, look at all those people out there thinking that something's going to change by their being out there on the street holding up a sign. That's not what's going to make a change. That's not what's going to shift things in my understanding. And I think that the distractions are huge. I know people are passionate, and I think that they believe that they're going to make a difference. But we're up against something that is very dark, something very dark that has an agenda to destroy what is sacred. And that, my sense of that is, the only thing I can focus on or say that would be, the dark one.
How else could you describe it?
Huh?
How else could you describe it?
How else could you describe it?
Exactly.
What would it be that would have the agenda to destroy the water, the creatures, the life, the plants, the seeds, humans? What would that be? Oh, then people say, oh, it's Monsanto. No, it's not Monsanto. Monsanto, those people are puppets for the dark. The politicians, everything that's going on here, you have to think about what is behind what we see happen. What is behind these other human beings they weren't born into, doing evil. I don't believe that. I believe that we are all sacred people. We're all sacred children of Creator. Something happens. And when you have a window of opportunity, and windows of opportunity are this: jealousy, hatred, judgments, and greed. Okay, those are 4 windows of opportunity that allow you to be taken over by that dark, by that evil. And that evil is looking for those windows of opportunity. That's why we have to be very, very careful. So we're not overtaken. And then you hear I can give you anything you want. You will have in your life anything that you could imagine. I will give to you. You just have to be on my side and do what I tell you to do. And that's selling your soul to the devil, as that, those words are going. As we know, those words are powerful. Selling your soul to the devil gives you whatever you could imagine and dream of, but you are soulless and you are lost. And yes, then you follow in the doing evil, footsteps, but you are soulless. And that brings us to say, how could these people do that? It's just like this, to me, I don't know. So that's how I look at this, and talking about the stuff, doing the research over these years that we all do the research and coming up with all this information that is quite shocking and stunning to us, but it's moved us further along and closer to the real big issue here, that no protesting marches and none of that, writing letters and all that stuff is not going to change it, because there's evil at foot here. That's how I look at it. And that's the only thing that I've come to conclude, because my question always is, who would want to destroy this sacred, amazing, beautiful miracle of earth and of life? Who would want to do that?
Patty?
I think she's... Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
We're down to 10 minutes on the show. I'm going to give her a few minutes to talk, and I'm going to add a few comments. Go ahead, Patty.
Well, I think that we need to really look at... We see what's happening now, and we know that that in the last decade, at least, that things have really changed in the world as far as every front, the political front, the medical front, everything. People are dying. People are getting sicker. We have full onslaught of attacks against our environment and against us. But this isn't something that's new. This has been planned and this has been implemented decades, many decades, if not centuries. This has been in the planning. This has been in the works. And if we go back through history, we see that civilizations have been created and civilizations have been destroyed to bring us into the next age, the next move into where they want us to be. Whether you believe that it's Luciferian, whether you believe that it is simply the control that is behind this, it really does not matter, because evil cannot exist unless it lives within the heart of man. And man is the one who creates this evil. Evil may be everywhere, but unless man acts upon it, it has no power. We are the ones who have to make the change. And if we look back through history and we see that it didn't matter at all how many people grabbed signs, how many people protested, how many people threw pebbles at the mountain expecting it to change, we know that it never did. We know that we always were moved from one pasture to the next. So here we are in the reality of this day that says we are being moved purposely from one pasture to the next. We are the herd being herded into the next pasture. If you see it as simply control, or if you see it as prophecy, either way, we have to make the change. The change does not come about unless we make that change. Knowing that protesting and all of this doesn't work, then we have to try a new tack. We have to go a different direction. And perhaps that different direction is taking ourselves out of the machine, because we are the machine. We created it. All the minds, everything that has been done, we, the people, have created it. It may have been at their instruction, but we're the ones who said, okay, going to, and we did it. And we man this machine, and we keep it going. We feed it every single day. So if we know that the machine is dependent upon us to live, to have life, then we also know that if we step away from the machine, that the machine will fall. And we have the technology within ourselves. The people who are in their garages are developing forms of renewable energy. We have the resources. We have the technology. The people do. It is our technology that did this. And we can create technologies in a beneficial way. But we are censored in that respect, because nothing can be built unless the machine says you can build this. We know this. So let's step away from the machine. Let's start creating our own. We have this ability. That's our power. And if we come together and we see past these clouds of these veils that have been put in front of us that say, you must conform, you must do it this way, there is no other way. If we discount that, then we change everything. And we can change it all if we truly come together and we walk away from the machine. You cannot expect to feed the machine and have it change, because we're the ones that make it go. Just saying.
Great thoughts, Patty. Barbara, I'll give you the last couple seconds or a couple minutes here for a couple thoughts, and I'll close up the show.
Yeah, I just feel absolutely correct about evil is present for everyone's It's ever present, and it's about our choice. It's about our free will to choose to step into that or not. I always say, therefore, but the grace of God go I. I could be doing that stuff, or someone else, that you know or love. Also, it's about our free will, the choices. I think that there is that temptation, and I know temptation is huge. Because there's a big push on what will make you happy. Well, you need to have this. You need to have a big car. You need to have a big house. You need to make millions of dollars. That will give you happiness and peace. And so there you're put in the position of choosing. What are you going to become or choose? How are you going to choose your life to be? It's your free will. We're all been given that ability. So yes, I believe that we could all step into that doing evil. And it is about our consciousness. It is about our morals. It is about what we feel inside of ourself, our heart, our spirit. This is how I look at this. So yes, it could be any one of us that makes that choice. Evil is present, as is good, as is dark, as is light, positive, negative. It's all about, in my estimation, free will. We could choose to turn the cheek, or we could choose to lend a hand. We could choose to stomp on somebody and not care, or we could choose to create this horrific pesticide that's going to, kill animals or babies or affect people. Or we could say, no, I'm not going to do that. I choose not to do that. And I think that this is a place where we are at the highest peak of that, choice or free will in this moment in time. That's what I feel.
Great thoughts, Barbara. And thank you, ladies, again for joining me today. It's just always great to have conversations with you guys, and I look forward to more in the near future. Outside of what's been said here today, folks, there is some real hardcore facts that I know we could all agree on. That the planet's in trouble, our health is in trouble, our very existence on this planet in the future is in peril. And however you want to go about it, I urge you all to get involved in trying to make a change, to sharing knowledge, to really looking hardcore at what we talked about today, and ask yourself what you can do to make changes in the future. And I'm going to, I got about a minute here. Yesterday I was driving up a bush road, and here's a beautiful sow bear with 2 cubs. And we come up to her, and one of the cubs stayed with Mom, and the other one came to my side of the road and climbed up a little tree. And I was about 5 feet away from this little cub, and I got to do about a 15-second stare-off with him. And I think he's asking me why I'm destroying his forest. That little experience will stay with me for the rest of my life, guys. So I don't know why I had to share that with you, but it really impacted me. Thanks for joining me today, guys, and look forward to talking to you again next week.
Thanks, Barry. Are you there? I guess we all went.
Yeah, we're still on air. Thanks, guys. I think we're still on air, but I had to get off there. Something like that really kind of just impacted me, and I thought about it all yesterday. It was really cool.
Thanks for sharing that, because I certainly have been there, and I know how emotional that is. When you have that deep connection to the creatures, they're communicating to us, asking us that very question. I totally think that's real.
Yeah, that's what I thought he was saying to me. I kind of like, wow, man, what an experience. I'm sitting there staring at this little cup right 5 feet away. Thanks, guys. I'll be back again next week. Thanks,
Barry.
Have a great week, guys. Love you all.
Love you.